a report from CNN's John King regarding Fast and Furious and Eric Holder lying to Congress. Roll it.
When did you first know about the program, officially I believe called Fast and Furious? To the best of your knowledge, what date?
I'm not sure the exact date, but I probably heard about Fast and Furious for the first time over the last few weeks.
He says over the last few weeks, that is on May 3rd, 2011. Listen to this interview the President of the United States, not the Attorney General, the President of the United States had with CNN Espanol back in March.
There have been problems. I heard on the news about this story that Fast and Furious, where allegedly guns were being run into Mexico, and ATF knew about it but didn't apprehend those who had sent it. Eric Holder, the Attorney General, has been very clear that he knew nothing about this. We've assigned a IG, Inspector General, to investigate it.
It begs the question, how did the President know about this in March, and how did the President know the Attorney General knew nothing about this in March when the Attorney General says in May he just learned about it a couple weeks ago?
Hans, is this one of the elements that you pursue in your book?
Yes. Look, it's very clear that Holder has had no qualms about misleading and, I would say, lying to Congress on numerous occasions. I mean, this is just one of them. He also, changed his story. That quote you had where he said, well, I only learned about it a couple of weeks ago, that's when he was testifying in front of a House committee. Several months later, he was testifying in front of a Senate committee, also on Operation Fast and Furious, and there he said, oh, well, I learned about it several months before I had first been asked about it. So he even changed his story between the House of Representatives and the Senate.
And that's really, we've seen this behavior, a pattern of behavior that you identify. Obama's enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, Hans von Spakovsky, the co-author, along with John Fund. Now we have more news related to the IRS involving Lois Lerner and her emails. They've been lost. But according to this exchange between Representative Chaffetz and the IRS commissioner, they have these things on backup files. Roll it.
Commissioner, what email system do you use there at the IRS?
What email system?
Yeah, is it Outlook or you?
Yes, we have actually Microsoft. At least I have Microsoft Outlook.
So you have Microsoft. You go on there and you want to find all the items you sent under your name. How long would that take?
Well, it would take a while because they're not all on my computer. They're all stored somewhere.
That's one of the brilliance of the email system is you go in and you check the sent box, the inbox, and you suddenly have all the emails, correct?
Right. They get taken off and stored in servers.
So, Hans, my question is, was IRS Commissioner Koskinen lying?
Well, I don't know if he was lying. He apparently was misinformed. On the other hand, look, ever since the IRS came out with his statement last Friday late, the usual dump bad news on a Friday afternoon. Look, one IT expert after another has been coming out saying they simply don't believe this. And I will tell you, I worked at 2 federal agencies. At the end of every day, all of our emails were backed up onto tapes. Now, the IRS is saying, well, Lerner's computer crashed, and we don't have the backup tapes anymore. But let me tell you, here's a question that nobody's asked, and it hasn't been answered, and it's this. Supposedly the Justice Department is criminally investigating this. Well, the FBI, which is part of the Justice Department, they have some of the best computer forensics experts in the country. Have those experts been asked to look at Lerner's hard drive to see if they can recover the emails? That has not been answered.
When you heard this story, were you surprised?
Well, I was surprised from the standpoint that I find it highly suspicious. from the standpoint of how they have delayed this investigation, how the Justice Department doesn't seem to be conducting a serious investigation, I can't say it surprises me that all of a sudden emails from a critical period, and specifically external emails between Lerner and other agencies like the White House, the Justice Department, and the Federal Election Commission have suddenly gone missing. You know, I guess I'm not surprised by that.
And that's what your book really does highlight. Are they just counting on the fact that there won't be a final follow-through, and that if there is, that it will come too late, that they can delay it just enough, they can run out the clock? Because so many of us, and we've talked about this before, Hans, Lois Lerner's been held in contempt, but where's the enforcement? The attitude of the administration under questioning, going back and listening to the exchanges during the IRS hearings, I'm thinking to myself, they don't have a respect for Congress's authority, and then it becomes political in the enforcement of that authority. So is the idea here, hey, Americans aren't really paying attention and we can marginalize those that do?
Yes, that's exactly it. In fact, look, this news came out Friday, and I'm not sure the New York Times has reported it yet. I know the most of the major networks haven't said a word about it.
Well, your book is...
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Imagine if during a Republican administration they came out suddenly and said the dog ate all of our emails in a crucial investigation. As you know, that would be blaring headlines and front-page news at the Washington Post and the New York Times.
Without a doubt. Something that is making the headlines is the child crisis. Up to 90,000 children now, or by year's end projected, from Central America coming up and attempting to make it into America. And they're doing it. They're there. A total influx, arguably attributed to President Obama's DREAM Act, when he announced in, I believe, 2012, June 15th, 2012, he said, hey, I'm announcing my own policy of not enforcing our immigration laws for deportation. And this sent a signal. This has been talked about, and I know you know more about it than me, certainly. My question is, where do we go from here if the president has sent a signal, kids can come to the border unaccompanied, parents are sending their kids to the border, and now they're here, and the president could say, hey, I don't have the resources to get them back. We're in a crisis situation. We really can't do anything about this, but it highlights the fact that we need comprehensive immigration reform, and how can you close the door on these children?
Well, this is where, for example, Republicans in Congress need to be very tough. This crisis is the direct result of the Obama administration's policies. And what they're doing is illegal. It is dangerous behavior. That's what a federal judge said about it some months ago. And these folks are being attracted because they've been basically promised amnesty, and Congress needs to very loudly say there is going to be no amnesty, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure these immigration laws are enforced to try to stop folks from coming in.
But if he has this attitude, here's a clip from 2010, Punish Your Enemies. It's famous, but speaking to the issue of immigration to an Hispanic audience on Univision, 2010. Roll it.
But ultimately, I think somebody said the other day, I am president, I am not king. I can't do these things just by myself. We have a system of government that requires the Congress to work with the executive branch to make it happen. I'm committed to making it happen, but I've got to have some partners to do it. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to see how well we do in this election. And I think a lot of it is going to depend on whether we still have some support, not only from Democrats, but also Republicans, but they're going to be paying attention to this election. And if Latinos sit out the election, instead of saying we're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends who stand with us on issues that are important to us, if they don't see that kind of upsurge in voting in this election,
then I think it's going to be harder. And that's why I think it's so important that people focus on voting on November.
Yeah. So, Hans, is this part of that you talked about? Congress needs to get tough, but you said the president, even in requesting for dollars to be spent on legal services for the children, he's breaking the law. First off, tell me how explain that. And if he has really no respect for the law, because in 2010 and 2011, he spoke to the fact that he couldn't make these changes in the immigration policy. And then in 2012, he did it. So if you're dealing with a man who doesn't respect the law and you have a Department of Justice head, Attorney General Holder, who's going to be his heat shield coming from you in your book and detailing that, where's justice?
Well, it's very difficult. First of all, the plan that Holder announced about a week ago that they would provide taxpayer funds for lawyers and paralegals for the illegal aliens coming in now, that is illegal. There's a part of the federal immigration law that lays out that while aliens in immigration court proceedings can have lawyers, it has to be at no expense to the government. That is the exact wording of the statute. So what Holder is basically doing is snubbing his nose at the law and illegally using taxpayer funds in a way that the federal law prohibits him from doing. Look, the only real thing Congress can do is try to hurt the administration through the appropriations process. I quite frankly, if I was in the House, I would cut out all of the travel expenses for the Attorney General's office. That would really cause him problems, but it would be a way of signaling to him that we are very unhappy with the things he's doing. That's just one example of using the appropriations process against specific government agencies like DOJ.
And I would say my advice to each and every person who is listening to the sound of my voice, if you want to know what's going on with our justice system and the enforcement of our laws, read Hans's book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. Hans, thank you. Great to be with you. Thanks, Hans. Take care. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.